What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackmine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they had a very eventful weekend as they get prepared for training camp and what is the beginning of football season. I mean, Ike Taylor and Chad Johnson were talking a little bit of smack on Twitter yesterday, and I don't know about you, but it got the juices flowing. For me, it was like, this is it. Football is back. We're ready to go. We're ready to hit the field, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are ready to find the best 53-man team they could possibly put together. Meanwhile, there is plenty to talk about. Our news and notes section is filled for the day, on top of a surprising cut candidate that has been named for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And on top of that, a pretty massive deal that is expected or predicted, we should say predicted, to be done by the Pittsburgh Steelers with one of their current quarterbacks on the roster. We'll dive into that. Plus, as we do every single day, we will answer all of your questions. So make sure that we are tossing them in the chat. We are only 2 days away from training camp. It's crazy times. It's a beautiful day here in the Berg, as it should be all week because it is football season. How you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It is football season. It is training camp week. I'm super excited, even though it feels like just yesterday Mike Tomlin was walking off the podium in Buffalo, that it feels good to be back.
It does. It does. I was actually just talking about that with some media people the other day about how, what's this year's Mike Tomlin walking off the podium? I don't know. We'll never know. But that was every year you're guaranteed to get at least 2 to 5 Mike Tomlin, this is an iconic, we will use this forever moment. And I'm excited to see what those moments are this year because it is football season and we are officially back. We got plenty of news and notes. Let's dive right into it. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, let's start off with somebody else in the AFC North. Adam Schefter reporting over the weekend that two-time Pro Bowl safety Eddie Jackson reached an agreement with the Baltimore Ravens on a 1-year deal. He had 6 defensive touchdowns for the Bears, and now he adds to a very historic defensive backfield in the AFC North when you look around the entire division. What do you think about Eddie Jackson joining the AFC North?
Yeah, so this was a guy that I think we pushed the Steelers to sign way back in free agency, was trying to get that deal done, never did. It was a good name. Eddie Jackson's definitely a great safety 3. Like, if this is your guy that's going to come in there with Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton and be your safety 3, I mean, I think it's as good as it gets. It's a good move for the Ravens. It's a bad move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I saw some people talking about, does this make the Ravens the best safety trio in the AFC or in the AFC North? I mean, I think on paper it does, but what Deshaun Elliott is capable of doing and how good Damontae Kazee could possibly be in their third year, on top of what the Steelers are yet to do if they do sign a guy like Patrick Peterson who could play both, I think they could compete. But it is a big move, and one certainly that's going to impact the Steelers and the AFC North because it is that significant.
Let's move over and talk a little bit about what Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk had to say discussing the Brandon Aiyuk trade, saying, quote, "There was a time before the draft, as they were haggling over what he's worth, his agent was given permission to see if other teams would pay him what he's looking for. At the time, it was $28 million, probably higher now because the market's changed, but I'm told there were 5 teams ready to go and give him what he wanted, but they couldn't work out a deal with the 49ers for a trade. 5 teams interested in Brandon Aiyuk at the NFL draft. Much more than what everybody's talking about right now."
Yeah, it was a shocking number, I think. I did not expect 5 teams to be in pursuit of Brandon Aiyuk. It's, I don't know, more concerning. I don't know if those 5 teams are still around, but certainly competition. I'll say this, I still think the Steelers lead that pack. I have a hard time believing that the Steelers aren't the team to get a deal done if a deal does become available for whoever's out there. I just don't see the 49ers giving Brandon Aiyuk to a team like, I don't know, the New England Patriots has been tossed out there recently, and that just doesn't make any sense for me. Why are you making that move if you're the Patriots, if you're not trying to win a Super Bowl? Why are you handing somebody a massive wide receiver deal? And at the same time, is Aiyuk really trying to go to New England? I don't think that's the case. So I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers leading that one off. I am interested to see what those other teams were. If 3 of them were the 49 or were the Steelers, the Patriots, and the Washington Commanders, who are the other 2 and who are the Steelers competing with? But I still think that they top that list and stack that pile when it comes to a trade with the 49ers.
Let's close out our news and notes segment with something that just popped up from PFF, who ranked their top defensive linemen in the NFL going into the 2024 season. TJ Watt, not first, not second or third or fourth. In fact, TJ Watt ranks sixth on this list of the top defensive linemen in the NFL. Your thoughts on TJ Watt, once again, lower than everybody expects him to be on a PFF list?
Yeah, it's wild. Can we pull up the list? Is that possible to do? Because it is atrociously bad. Like, it's as bad as it gets when it comes to a list of possible defensive. It's just defensive linemen. Like, that's the craziest part, is that it's not just linebackers, it's defensive linemen. Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, 1-2, wild to me. I mean, they have a clear fascination with Myles Garrett. The PFF and Myles Garrett, there is some sort of NIL deal going on there. There has been for a long time. Chris Jones, I think, is above Micah Parsons, if we're going to be totally honest. I could have saw him at 2, maybe 3. Nick Bosa, what are we talking about? How is he over TJ Watt? That makes no sense to me. And Dexter Lawrence, what is going on here? What is going on? This list from start to finish is pretty bad. If they even went remotely okay, it would have went Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Chris Jones, Max Crosby, maybe Aiden Hutchinson. But I'm sorry, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, and 9 are probably all in the top 5. And depending on where you put Micah Parsons, maybe in the top 4. So PFF's wild. They're always wild. TJ Watt being 6th is hilarious, but the Raiders, the Lions, I mean, and anybody sitting around saying Jalen Carter is a top 10 defensive lineman in the NFL is not watching the NFL. So there's just too much going on here. PFF, hilarious, as they typically are. PFF is pretty on brand when it comes to this list.
Yeah, it's interesting whenever you look at that list, and you sent it to me right before we got on air, and I said, oh, it's a PFF thing, so 100% it has to deal with TJ Watt. And as soon as I opened it, I was like, yep, there it is.
There it 100%. Is. Number 6, wild. I mean, Myles Garrett, you expect Myles Garrett to be first. It's a PFF list, but the rest of it is just, it gets worse as it goes down, and no disrespect to anybody, but there are a lot of names on there that are just crazy. All right, let's dive into some quarterback talk, because there are some big ones from over the weekend. We'll start with Russell Wilson, and I somehow closed out my tab, but we're going to bring it back up. No worries here. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to head into training camp, and there is plenty of names who could get cut from this team and plenty of changes that could come with the 53-man roster, especially the quarterback competition. It will headline all of Steelers training camp. It will be the biggest thing that is talked about maybe across the NFL over the next month and a half. Who is going to win between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and is this a real quarterback competition? We have everybody, and I mean everybody, picking a side, whether it's Russ, whether it's Justin, or whether it's, I don't know what side to pick, but I'm going to get involved with the argument. And there are a lot of people who are talking about Justin Fields being the guy that overtakes Russell Wilson and wins this job. Okay, if he does, Pro Football Network's Dakota Randall, who I don't know Dakota Randall, I'm not going to say whether he's, I'm not going to say anything about him. We'll say that. He believes that if Justin Fields does win this competition, Russell Wilson is on his way out. Quote, with the salary of just over $1 million, Russell Wilson is arguably the more valuable to the Steelers if he stays on the roster. However, the salary also makes him easy to cut, and if Justin Fields wins the starting quarterback job, Pittsburgh might want to cut Russell to avoid distractions. Now, contradicting yourself in your own argument never works out, and we tend to call it out, even though we probably do it to ourselves from time to time. Russell Wilson, let me explain this to a lot of people. He is not getting cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and quite frankly, I have a really hard time believing that Russell Wilson is going to be the guy that causes distractions to the Pittsburgh Steelers if he doesn't win the starting job. I don't see a point in Russell Wilson becoming more of an issue in the NFL than he already is, and having a worse name than he already does if he doesn't win the starting job. Are you going to go out in the flames of glory and things are going to be remarkable and you're going to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? No, chances are that's all behind you if you don't win the job over Justin Fields and have a good season. But I don't think that's a way to say, hey, at this point, I'm just going to throw it all away. Russell Wilson, in a short amount of time, has proven to me and probably many others that he is the most hands down professional human being I've ever been around, ever in my entire life. TJ Watt doesn't say much. I've been around Ben Roethlisberger, who, Ben's not a professional. Ben's Ben Roethlisberger. He's always been Ben Roethlisberger. Kenny Pickett was groomed to be somebody who's a professional in these instances. Mason Rudolph was one of the most professional human beings I've ever been around. Same with Mitch Trubisky. Russ blows them all away. It's not even close. To consider Russ a cut candidate makes zero sense just in the distraction side of this argument. When it comes to what the Steelers would want to do, I mean, when the Steelers signed Russell Wilson, it was clear as day, and they made it very known that we signed Russell Wilson to make sure that we have two quarterbacks on this roster who can lead us to a Super Bowl that we feel very confident in. They added Justin Fields. None of that changed. If Russell Wilson does not win the job, he is their backup to make sure that when things do not go well or Justin Fields gets hurt or something happens, that they have another guy not named Kyle Allen, not named John Rice Plumlee, who is stepping onto a football field and trying to take them to a Super Bowl. The season is not over if one of their quarterbacks go down. That's why they have two good ones. That's why they want a competition. That's why they want Justin Fields to be here, and they want him to have some competition in him, even if it's not a real one. And in my eyes, it's not a real one, to make sure that he's comfortable enough that if it does happen and he has to step on the field, he is not going to be an issue, and you're not going to get a fall or a drop in quality play. I mean, look, I've been a Russell's not going anywhere guy from the beginning of this, but he remains the guy that everybody believes is not going to work out in Pittsburgh. Is there any shot Russ is gone before the start of the season, outside of maybe the Detroit Lions lose their quarterback, and this is just a random example, but the Detroit Lions lose their quarterback, Justin Fields wins the starting job in Pittsburgh, and Detroit's calling saying, hey, we'll give you a first-round pick for Russell Wilson. Outside of a crazy scenario like that, is there any chance that Russ finds himself on the streets before the season because he's getting cut from the Steelers?
No, and even if he is a distraction, which, again, I'm not even going to give that merit because that has always been the storyline surrounding Russell Wilson, is that he's a distraction. He does this, especially it heated up whenever he got to Denver. And if you talk to anybody around Denver, especially in that first year when it was him and Hackett, everybody said it was probably Hackett was more of the issue, and Russell Wilson really wasn't that big of an issue, but the national media loves to play up the corny Russell Wilson becomes the distraction type of storyline. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue, first of all. Second of all, I don't even think he's going to lose the starting battle. And third, even if he does, I don't see why the Steelers would cut him and go with a guy like Kyle Allen as your backup. It makes zero sense, especially because he's only making $1 million. So it's not like you're saving money or anything like that. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, I look at it very simply. Like we just talked about Nathaniel Hackett on Friday and how he almost got fired from another job this offseason for the Steelers offensive coordinator, which clearly shows you that this guy is not built to lead an NFL offense. He had some success in Green Bay. Yep, I get it. He's not ready to be that guy, and he hasn't been that guy for a couple of years. So maybe at that point, you really do look at it and say, yeah, maybe Russ wasn't that big of an issue. Maybe it was the fact that the coaching staff over in Denver wanted nothing to do with them, and the guy that started there with Russ was a complete waste of space as a coach. So I don't know. I think it's wild. There's zero. I don't know. I'd give it maybe 15% shot that Justin Fields actually wins this quarterback competition. Don't get me wrong. We're going to cover it from start to finish. From the day that it starts until the day that it ends, there will be coverage of the quarterback competition on All Steelers Talk on SI.com. It's just going to happen. That's going to be the biggest storyline of all of training camp. But I'm going to make it known throughout the entire time that I don't believe that this is a real quarterback competition. That unless Justin Fields comes out here and blows me away, I'm looking at Russell Wilson as the starter, and I believe the Steelers are doing the same, or have the same belief that Russ is the guy and he can take them as far as they want to go, and Justin gets a year behind him, which is a good transition into Justin Fields' contract and a big prediction that is coming from SportsIllustrated.com on what that contract could be. But before we dive into that, we got a quick word from our boys over at BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you ever found yourself scrolling on social media, maybe spending too much time on whatever platform you're addicted to and thinking, man, why am I feeling down? Why do I find myself not finding the joy that social media is supposed to give me? That's because comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. But therapy can help. It can help you focus on what you want instead of what other people have, so you can start living your best life. I'm somebody who's advocated for therapy for a long time. You constantly see me wearing the sweatshirt. Going to therapy is cool. I've reaped the benefits for years, and I think everybody who's thinking about it should add that to their agenda as well, because in one way or another, it's very helpful. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/allsteelers today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/allsteelers. All right, we are back. Shout out BetterHelp, always helping. Let's talk about Justin Fields and a prediction that came from sportsillustrated.com and an NFL analyst that I respect a ton and who has given plenty of quality predictions and thoughts throughout the years. But this one, man, this one we got to talk about. This one we got to dive into. Connor Orr of sportsillustrated.com or SI.com, excuse me. I just gave my own employer's name wrong. Is that what it is? I couldn't even come up with the words. Came up with a prediction of what Justin Fields is looking at in the future. Are predicting the landing spots or the future of all of the upcoming free agent quarterbacks in 2025. This is what he says about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Quote, personally, I think Fields started to really come on as a passer. He was better in 2-minute situations and still has an excellent touch on the football. I think that with time, effort, and good coaching, he could round into a consistent top 12 player at the position. That would be massive for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That said, he is very much a free agent at the end of the season and has what so many quarterbacks do not: incredible movement skills and the ability to accelerate an offense where the run and pass are intimately tied together. Way too early prediction. Fields will re-sign with the Steelers on a Baker Mayfield style 3-year deal at the end of the season. 3 years, $100 million, I believe $45 million guaranteed, maybe $55 million guaranteed, is what Baker Mayfield signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the end of this past season. Justin Fields might not start a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't get me wrong, in this sentence, when he says a top 12 quarterback, I mean, if the Steelers get a top 12 quarterback in the NFL, they are very happy about it. They are not upset whatsoever. And if you want to sign a top 12 quarterback to a $100 million deal, that is okay. You can go do that. 3 years, $100 million, $45, $55 million guaranteed for Justin Fields if he does not play a game this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just sounds wild to me. Is there any shot in your head where this becomes a thing and has any traction, any feet behind it to push it forward, and the Steelers are possibly thinking, yeah, we'll give him a Baker Mayfield style deal?
Yeah, no, there's a shot that this happens, but Russell Wilson has to decide, I kind of want to be a professional singer now instead, so I'm not going to play this season. And then Justin Fields has to go on to win the division, which is what Baker Mayfield did to earn a 3-year, $100 million contract. It's not like Baker Mayfield just started for the Bucs. He won the AFC South last year. He won a playoff game last year, and then he signed this contract. Unless you see that happening, I don't see Justin Fields signing a similar contract in Pittsburgh.
No, I don't know how we got from Jordan Love's style contract. That was refuted. There were people saying there's no way the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to hand Justin Fields a Jordan Love cheap deal of anything over $4 million per season to a Baker Mayfield style $100 million deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. wild times. I don't see that happening at all. I don't even see it as a possibility. You look at Justin Fields, even if he earns the starting job in Pittsburgh this year, they are going to give him a 1-year prove it deal. That is all they're going to hand Justin Fields. Maybe they'd hand him a 2-year just because they'd like to extend it a little bit and save themselves some money, and they can backload it to where that second year is on the cusp of a, $20 to $25 million per season. But that is completely backloaded. The first year is $4 million, $5 million, where you're coming in here with backup quarterback money to prove that you are a starter. You will have competition with somebody, and then a year after, you will earn actual starting quarterback money. But right now, heading into 2024, I see absolutely no shot. Even if he does pull off the starting job, the only way that Justin Fields signs a massive contract is if we go into Latrobe on Wednesday, which chills saying that we're going into Latrobe on Wednesday. Justin Fields immediately takes off. He is the dude. You cannot stop him. There is no denying that he is the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's the starter in week 1, and he leads the Steelers to one phenomenal season. If that's the case, yeah, I could see that happening. But at the same time, I got a hard time believing that there won't be 8 to 10 teams out there calling Justin Fields at the end of the season saying, we're about to hand you a boatload of money if you come play for us instead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and there's going to be some competition. So I just don't see it happening. Would it be a good idea if you could sign him to a 3-year backloaded deal for $80 million and really backload those last 2 years? Yeah, that'd be great. But that first year is no more than $5 million. And I'd say almost nothing is guaranteed in that contract outside of that first $5 million. So that's where I stand. I don't know. We talked about it before. I don't see this as a real competition, and I see an even further jump from Justin Fields getting a Baker Mayfield style deal. Could happen. I think the problem here is people are not at practice watching Justin Fields. They don't actually know what's going on. They're just guessing at how good he could be without understanding how far he still has to come, which is important to the story, but it's where we stand. $33 million a year for Justin Fields. Yikes. That being said, 4 months ago, I was on the pay Justin Fields, you're the first year or the 5th year option, which is $25 million. So I did look like an idiot at the time, and maybe I'm backtracking a little bit as we stand today. Could you see a backloaded deal? Then we'll move on.
I could see something like that because that's more of a prove me deal. And that's more of a, hey, next year you're going to sign, you're going to get the opportunity next year. And then if you perform, you're going to get the back half of that contract, which is going to be heavily loaded towards paying him as that top 12 quarterback that we were discussing earlier is what he could potentially become. But again, going into this season, it's hard to picture them giving him any amount of money whenever he's going into the year as the backup and saying that he's going to get a massive deal after the season in which, as of right now, he's not expected to start. Maybe he'll get in a game, maybe he won't. But when you're saying maybe about his playing time, you're not going to say maybe, or you're not going to say anything definitive about his money and his paychecks going into next season.
Yes, I agree. It is a long ways away, but it will be talked about probably on a weekly basis. And there will be a lot. How long do you think we go into training camp before the Justin Fields should be the starter narrative of the national media? Not those there, because quite frankly, I haven't heard a single other beat reporter who has been at practice every single day say, and that is not the radio. Okay, let's be 100% clear here. This does not include the radio. Beat reporters say that Justin Fields should be the starter or is expected to be the starter. How long into training camp do you think until that fades in the national media, if it does?
When does Peter King visit? That's my first question. When does Peter King visit?
He retired.
That's right. I forgot it. He retired. So we're going to have until the first preseason game whenever Justin Fields inevitably balls out against number 2s and number 3s. And all of a sudden, everybody's going to say, man, Justin Fields, he looked really good, better than Russell Wilson did in that game. And we're going to start getting that narrative.
Yeah. It's going right up to week 1. It's going right up until the end of the season. Let's be honest. Until Russell Wilson can do everything perfect this year. Justin Fields' narrative will continue to be there, especially if the Steelers are boring, because that's just what they do, man. That's what the national media does. Crazy times, not going to happen. For anybody sitting around saying Justin Fields is getting paid. Let's calm those expectations. All right, before we head out of here, let's answer everybody's questions. If you got more of them, please toss them in the chat. We will be happy to answer all of them before we head out, as we do every single day. We are 2 days away from training camp, so you got to have questions. Toss them out there. Be happy to answer.
Let's start with Dalton's, who says, who gets the special teams captain spot, Matakevich or Killebrew? Both have been captains for the Steelers in the past.
Yeah, great question. Love that you started the show off with this bad boy. I'm going Killebrew. Killebrew's been here. Obviously Matakevich has been here as well, but Killebrew's more recently been here. He's guaranteed to make the roster. He's an all-pro last season, and he's a captain. Like, Killebrew is a captain. He carries that captain's badge very well. I'm going with Killebrew, but to have two of them, to have two really quality special teams aces, is a great place for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially with the new kickoff rules. I'm excited for it.
Let's go over to Brandon's, who says, morning, fellas. Does Cam Akers to Houston add any possibility of John Mechie going to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I would say no. I mean, a running back wide receiver doesn't really push the needle or push the thread that much. I'm saying no. I don't know if John Mechie is going to end up in Pittsburgh. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know how much sense it makes for the Houston Texans. That's where the divide comes in. We'll see when we get closer to August. I think it could be a point where Houston just finds themselves going, John Mechie is too good not to trade. His trade value is going to go down after this season. Let's trade him right now. That's when that could possibly happen. But I don't think Cam Akers pushes that needle at all.
Joe Dilly says, hey, fellas, so I plan on attending my first practice this year at Friday Night Lights. Do you happen to know if it's free, and do I need a mobile ticket? How do I get one if so?
Yes, you go to Ticketmaster or the Steelers website should probably have them. It is free. You can attend. You just have to make sure that you get them, and I would get them quick because they do sell out pretty quickly. So I would make sure that I jump on that. I believe they're on Ticketmaster. The Steelers website should also have them available. So look at those two places. If you're there, make sure that you give me a holler. Would love to meet everybody.
Let's move over to Joe's second question here, who says, is it true Davante Adams has a major cap hit after this season, which is why the Raiders might want to trade him if they can find a suitor?
Yeah, it's $44 million next year and the year after that. 44. I don't know who negotiated this contract, but $44 million is bonkers. $15 million in dead cap just to cut him. The Raiders are going to have to take that on if they're trading him. So it's not ideal, but it does open the door for a team like the Steelers who have the cap space.
Secret 77 says, what happens to Justin Fields if Russell Wilson has an excellent year?
I mean, depending on the contract situation, it could be the end of Justin Fields in Pittsburgh, which is a quick campaign here, but that's what could happen. Russ is going to have to, if Russ has a good year, it comes down to, is Russ going to take a lot of money in his next deal? Is he going to look at it and say, I need $30+ million to stick in Pittsburgh? Because if that's the case, then you give Justin Fields a shot, unless you win a Super Bowl, and then you're looking at it like, all right, well, we'll figure this out. We have to sign Russell Wilson to another deal. But if that doesn't happen, it comes down to money. But if the money is good with Russ, if Russ is ready to win another Super Bowl and is ready to take a pay cut, the Steelers are probably going to move on from Justin Fields.
Pittsburgh Hornets says, what's more likely? TJ Watt gets respect from PFF, or the Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates win a playoff game in 2024-25?
All three of them, huh? That's a playoff series for the Pirates and the Penguins is about as tough as it gets. I'm not going to lie. That's not looking great. But if we're going to be honest, it might be more likely that this, because you have all of time, you don't have that long of TJ Watt still in the NFL. I think that you got of all time for the Steelers, Pirates, and Penguins to win a playoff game. But in 2024, 2025, I don't know. I would still say the playoffs. Maybe I would still possibly say the playoffs.
Now, if you put or instead of and there, I would 100% go with that one, because I think the Pirates win a playoff game this year, maybe. But somebody's winning a playoff game before PFF gives a little bit of respect to TJ Watt.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Let's go over to Lifted Ones, who says, why are the Niners being so stingy with Ayuk? Bro is clearly being a hostage there.
They want to win, dude. They want to win a Super Bowl, and I get it, which is why this is so interesting, but at the same time makes no sense for the 49ers. Like, it's That's why next Friday is my first deadline, and then the end of August is my second, because the first deadline comes when I finally says, look, guys, I'm not showing up to training camp. Like, I don't care. I'll give up $14 million this season. You got to trade me, which I think is a possibility. And then if they don't take that threat seriously, it'll come at the end of August when he says, look, guys, I'm not coming. So you might as well get rid of me. Otherwise, I'm going to walk next year and you don't get to play with me. So it comes down to them finally taking it seriously that he's not going to show up. But right now, they're not taking that seriously, which the Steelers have been there before. They didn't take it seriously either. Then, things didn't turn out well.
Still Cold says, this might be a dumb question. Where's Steven?
Where is Steven? Nobody knows. Now, Steven's out with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He took a job at the end of June. He started July 1st. He's covering all Pitt athletics there. So shout out to Steven. He's doing a lot of stuff over there. I've been keeping up with his work. I've been texting him a little bit here and there. So he's doing good.
Let's go to a couple questions about Zach Frazier. First, Vibing with the Dogs wants to know, when does Zach Frazier start to get reps with the ones at training camp?
I would say right off the bat, him and Nate Herbig are going to split reps, and they'll see who's best. I'm not ruling out Nate Herbig ready to make an impact for this offensive line, but I'm also not ruling out that Zach Frazier's ready to go. So I think that's going to be one of the best competitions of training camp, and I think it starts right from the jump, day we get there.
Yeah, and that goes into Steven's question, who said, what are the expectations going into camp? Obviously, you mentioned they might split it, but what are the expectations for Frazier? Do you think they expect him to be the starter come week one?
I think they expect him to be the starter, but I don't believe they're going to give it to him easily. I think they'll have him challenge Nate Herbig, and they're not going to. The reason they have a competition going is because Nate Herbig could start at center, and they'd feel comfortable with that, but they want Frazier to be that guy. So they need Frazier to earn that spot, just like Broderick, just like Joey. It's not going to come easy, but I do believe that they want him to be the starter in week one, and I think he's going to be.
Lifted One says, what is the most obscure jersey that both of you guys own?
Antonio Brown. It's an easy Antonio Brown. If we're going outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I got some good ones. My favorite of all time that I own is my Roy Williams, the wide receiver with the Detroit Lions. It was my first jersey ever. I love that dude. He was a monster.
Yeah, I don't have very many obscure Steelers.
Yeah, you got good ones though.
I have a Juju Smith-Schuster jersey. Does that count as obscure at this point?
That's obscure enough. Yeah, at this point.
That's the most obscure Steelers jersey I have, because it's literally just him, and I think a Hines Ward and a TJ Watt. So you're not going obscure on that one. Hockey wise, I do have a Carl Hagelin jersey, if that counts as well.
That's much more obscure. There it is. There it is.
Let's go to Carl's question, who says, let's say we do get Brandon Ayuk. If GP plays as good or outperforms him on the field, then do we end up in the same spot next year? Steelers won't pay two wide receivers $30 million.
No. So it's tougher to explain because there's a lot that goes into it. If Brandon Ayuk signs a 3-year deal, which is what's going to happen, you're going to sign a 3-year deal, $30 million a year. So that starts next season. George Pickens will also have to sign a 3-year, $30 million deal, which will start in 2 seasons. So you're getting both those guys for $30 million for 2 years. Chances are you got to trade one. You're going to trade Brandon Ayuk. That's just what's going to happen. It's not ideal, but it's spaced out enough where you might only have to overlap them for 1 year, which is possible depending on your quarterback situation. It is possible to do that. It's not ideal. It's not suited for the best outcome when it comes to a football team, but it is capable of being done. It's essentially you're paying a quarterback and a wide receiver. It's not the best way to look at things, but a lot of it comes down to how many guys on defense do you have to pay? You're set up pretty well. You might be able to get away with 1 year of both of them crossing for $30 million a year, and then you have to trade one of them, which will probably be Ayuk, but it's not going to be that hard to trade him.
And it's funny, too, because Carl jumps in with the memorabilia question saying, if it helps, the only signed memorabilia I ever bought was a Chase Claypool mini helmet. Worst decision ever.
Shout out, Carl. If you're at training camp this year, you could ask him to sign it. So, there it is. Sign it again this time, and have him sign it in red this time. There you go for the Bills.
Let's go to the Savage Gentleman, who says, you guys may have covered this. If so, I apologize. What would it take for the Steelers to go out and get a true number 1 wide receiver like Brandon Ayuk?
I think it's going to take a first-round pick and some. I think a first-round pick and a third-round pick next year gets the job done, maybe a second-round pick next year, but it's going to take a big splash. The 49ers are not going to go easy, and they're going to make it difficult. So I'm saying at least a first-round pick, probably a little bit more. I think that's where they got tied up at the NFL draft, is the Steelers weren't willing to give up more than just a first-round pick. I would say first, maybe a third next year.
Let's move over to... Scroll up. Mike Drop Sports, who says, morning, gents. Haven't gotten to watch in a while. Is there a legit chance Troy Fautanu having a real shot at starting? I believe this means in week 1. I think it's best to have this young line group in place early in camp.
Yeah, I think there's a real shot. He's got a little bit of development ahead of him, but I do believe there's a shot that he starts in week 1 and earns that starting job. The Steelers would like that to be the case. They would like Broderick Jones to move over to the left side and Troy to play the right side so that they could just move on with their lives and stop worrying about when they have to make that. I compare it to my life right now. Right now, I currently have an apartment and a new home, and I'm slowly moving into the new home, but I'm waiting because the new home is not ready. There's no bed. The office is still not getting done. There's still some development there. But I think about it every single day about how I have to get into that new house. That's what the Steelers are thinking about here when it comes to Troy Fautanu. At some point, Broderick Jones has got to play left tackle. How long can we push that out? So I think they want to get it done. I don't know if it depends on them or him more this training camp.
Vibing with the Dog says, I see some dumb team throwing Justin Fields money because of his age next year. If that happens, where do the Steelers go from there at quarterback?
The NFL draft. That's where they go. They go get somebody in the NFL draft. And if you still have a first round draft pick, if you didn't give it up, you go get somebody. You go make a move and you move up in the draft and you try to get a quarterback that you feel good about, but that's their next option. Unless Russ looks good and you could sign Russ and you feel good about that, and Justin's gone and some dumb team, because you're right, some dumb team could toss him money because of his age and his abilities. You go to the NFL draft. That's where you go and you try to make a move.
Broderick Wallace says, which training camp event or events are you most excited to watch this year? Example, Backs on Backers, everybody's favorite.
Yeah, Backs on Backers is by far. I was just talking to one of our Steelers contributors, Jacob Pinturi, the other day and telling him, hey, you got to get out to practice for the first day of pads because Backs on Backers is something that you can't miss. Like, nobody can miss Backs. And being up close and personal, like I stand close enough to hear, to watch the sweat fall off them. Like, it reminds you would die if you were out there, and also that it's the best time of the year because football is back. Backs on Backers, easy. Corners versus wide receivers, 2-minute drill. People sleep on the 2-minute drill, man. 2-minute drill is where it is at. And then also the sideline drill. Like, they do a little sideline drill where it's the offensive guys, skill guys versus the linebackers and defensive backs. You got to keep them in bounds, make a tackle. 2 years ago, it was Master Teague versus Mark Robinson going head-to-head, and it was two bulldozers just running straight into each other. It was a great time, so that'll be exciting too.
We got a couple of the same question here, so we'll cover them at once. Wish You Would says, who will be the starting running back 1? And KTH Clip says, long-time watcher, second-time question asker here. What do you guys think will be who do you guys think will be the feature back on the team? I really love both guys, but I feel like the fans are going to be divided.
Yeah, so I think the starting running back will be Najee Harris. That's not going to change. It'll be more split than typical. You'll keep Najee healthier for the end of the season, so Jalen will get more reps. Cordero Patterson might get more reps. I still think Najee will be the feature back, I guess would be the word, but I don't think they'll have a feature back. I think that they will utilize both of them to the best of their abilities, which means that Jalen's a better pass blocker, so he'll be out there on passing downs, and Najee's a better bulldozer, so he'll be there on bulldozing downs. That's how they'll utilize it. Najee will be in there from time to time on bigger plays to make sure that you got a reliable set of hands, so on and so forth. But I think they got two starting running backs, Najee will be technically the first guy that goes out there, but you'll utilize them both.
And then we have another running back question here from Grant, who says, do you think Najee and Jaylen Warren both have 1,000 yards this season?
Yes. I've made that my bold prediction. I'm going to keep that as a bold prediction. I think both of them break 1,000 yards this season.
Let's go over to Victor, who says, how easy would it be to find you in Latrobe? Oh, sorry. How easy would it be to find Latrobe? Well, answer both of them. How easy would it be to find Latrobe? I'm from Philly and visiting, and my parents aren't going because they are diehard Eagles fans.
Tell your parents it's a good time to go watch some football. Who cares if they're Eagles fans or not? Make sure that you get tickets. You got to get tickets. You can't just show up. And practices are in the morning this year, so that's important. They're at 10:30 in the morning. Unless you're going on a weekend, then it's like 1:55 in the afternoon. How easy is it to find? Super easy. I don't know what part of Pittsburgh you're in or where you'll be, but Latrobe is about 45 minutes outside the city. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's super easy to find. All you do is type in St. Vincent College. Once you get close enough, there are signs everywhere. It's a good time. If you're looking for me in Latrobe, I'll be on the field. Just give me a holler. I mean, I got the same hair and the same glasses and the same beard every day for the last 24 years of my life, so I'm not changing. You'll hear me. Just give me a yell. I'll come over and say what's up.
Let's go over to Joe Dilly's question, who says, do you guys have faith in if we lose James Daniels, the line will be okay, or are we still looking to draft or trade for depth?
I don't think you're drafting or trading anybody. James Daniels isn't going this season. He's going to play this season. Next year, you'll take it in there and you'll let Spencer Anderson and Mason McCormick compete. You might bring in another veteran as like a swing guy, but I still think that those two will be your top options, and they'll see what they have next year. But it's way too early to tell if Mason McCormick, where his starting point is and how far he needs to go. I know that Pat Myers, the offensive line coach, loves that guy. So he's got really high hopes for what Mason McCormick can do. And the Steelers love Spencer Anderson. So he's got a shot as well. I think both of those guys will be the answer next year, but we'll see a year from now where they're at.
We have our daily dose of DK Metcalf. Ragu says, I love the thought of DK Metcalf. What about you?
I do love the thought. It's not going to happen. You know, I know that everybody wants DK Metcalf to end up in Pittsburgh. He's not going to end up in Pittsburgh. If he does, I'd be shocked, and I will be the first person to admit that I'm wrong. But I mean, we could take this back to months ago where I actually asked somebody, a source that I very much so believe is credible and trust, DK Metcalf, and I got laughed at. And I said, all right, that's all I needed to hear. I could interpret the rest. So I don't believe DK Metcalf is an answer.
Steven wants to know, what day do they throw on pads at Steelers camp?
I gotta ask. I don't remember, to be honest with you. I believe it's the second week. I want to say Thursdays when they go out, Friday, and then they'll go the first weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is like a ramp up period. And then I want to say it's that Monday that they throw pads on. Maybe it's that Tuesday that they throw pads on, but I want to say it's the beginning of the second week when pads first come on.
Lifted One says, who makes a greater impact on the defense this year, Minkah Fitzpatrick or Patrick Queen?
Oh, both. I'm going both. I don't know how you can't go both. Like it's I don't know who has a bigger impact. Minkah's going to come up with 5+ turnovers. Patrick Queen's going to completely solidify this defense as a whole. So in different ways, I think their impact is as big as it gets for the Steelers defense. I think Patrick Queen changes what the Steelers are capable of doing and finally clears up a spot that they've been missing for 10 years now. So I would give the edge to Patrick Queen, but I don't know, man. I think Minkah will be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. Like, that's how good of a season I think Minkah's going to have.
That's huge if that does happen. I mean, if that happens, the Steelers are in prime positioning.
Prime position. I could see 5+ turnovers before the end of the season for Minkah.
Let's move over to Carl's with that. And he says, who are you most looking forward to speaking to at camp that you have not had the chance to already?
Oh, that's tough. You talk to a lot of people at OTAs and minicamp. Like, it's the time of year where you're just kind of introducing yourself and saying what's good, talking to guys, seeing what's up. There's some guys that I enjoy talking to that I haven't talked to yet. That I would be interested in talking to. Calvin Austin's my dude. I love talking. Like, me and Calvin have talked off the record. Obviously, we chat every time we're in the locker room, but I haven't gotten a good interview with him yet. Scotty Miller, haven't talked to Scotty Miller yet, which I always love talking to Scotty. Or I don't always love talking to Scotty, but I've heard people love talking to Scotty. Oh man, this is a tough question, dude. I won't lie to you. Chris Boswell would be great. I haven't talked to Chris Boswell in like 2 years. That'd be a good time. So we'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of good names. Larry O. I enjoy a good Larry O interview, and Larry O only talks to select few people. So I always kind of feel honored when I get the shot to talk to him.
Have you talked to Cameron Johnston yet?
Yes, actually. Cameron's hilarious. He got me. So he was punting the one day of practice. I'll tell you guys the story. He was punting during minicamp, and they all kept landing like 3 feet from me. And I was like, I looked at him. I was like, dude, you trying to hit me? And he he was like, I am actually. He's like, I'm aiming right for you, and one of these is gonna hit you. I'm like, thanks. And then I looked at Christian Kuntz, who was standing there. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to catch one. And he's like, you're gonna break your chest. Please don't catch that. And I didn't because I listened. But Cameron's a funny dude. Cameron's a good dude. So I have talked to him. He's cool. And his accent is awesome.
That leads into the question that Mike had about Cameron Johnson. He said, how excited are you to see what he can do in training camp now that he is the starting punter?
Dude, I'll tell you this. Last year and the last 2 years, and I think Presley Harvin is a phenomenal person, and I hope he gets another opportunity in the NFL. I love Prez. He's a good dude. Congratulations. I know he just got engaged. I'm big fan of Presley Harvin, the human being. For the last 2 years, 3 years, you've watched the Steelers punting battle and thought with every punt, you're like, all right, that was a good one. That was a bad one. That was a good one. That was a bad one. That was an iffy one. What's going to happen? Cameron Johnson, I've been watching for weeks, and it's just good. Everything looks perfect. So I'm very excited to see what Cameron Johnson could bring, but I also think it's going to get boring real fast because you're going to be like, good punt, another one. Look at that. That's awesome. So I'm excited.
Let's go to Carlton's question, who says, what happened to the fullback? I don't know what
Colletto.
fullback, the position or specifically Jack Colletto.
I hope it's coming back, and I hope Jack Colletto makes the team. He's on my sleepers that's going out in about an hour. He's on my sleepers to make the Steelers 53-man roster. I think he's got a shot. He looked good in OTAs and minicamp. The Steelers should bring back a fullback. I told Nick before the show, when they play the Ravens, it should be Jack Colletto and Patrick Ricard that line up there as captains, nobody else. I think if you go into overtime against Baltimore, you should only be able to run fullback dives. So, I'm all about it. I hope it comes back. I hope Jack Colletto earns his place in Pittsburgh.
Joe Dilly says, when do we get back Marcus Golden and Quan Alexander? LOL. Do you think we need more rotational depth at those positions?
I don't think you need to bring back Marcus Golden just yet. I love Marcus Golden, but I'm excited to see what David Perales and Jeremiah Moon bring to the defense and see if they could earn a spot. David Perales is a guy that he intrigues me. He's also on my sleepers to make the 53-man roster. Quan Alexander could be an interesting one if Cole Holcomb's not available. Could be a name to watch if they're trying to have 4 inside linebackers, but I think 3 is going to be enough with Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, and Peyton Wilson. So I think they'll hold out there, but Quan Alexander would be the name that I brought back before Marcus Golden, I believe.
Luke Nessie, we'll close it out with this one, says, do y'all have plans to do player interviews on AST at all this season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they'll be pre-recorded because it gets pretty tough. That's the problem is during the off season, it's easy, but it's also difficult to find guys that want to do interviews because everybody's doing everything. And, unless you get them with a brand deal, it's tough to bring them on. We go live, which is even tougher because you have to make it their schedule, but we'll have plenty of pre-recorded one-on-one interviews that we get to play during the show that we'll get to bring to you guys. No doubt about it. As for live stuff, we'll try to get you some stuff, but it might be later in the day and so on and so forth because 9 o'clock is prime players are doing stuff hour. So like the rest of us, they're at work.
That's a wrap for today's questions.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are going to head out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as we always say, please go find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. I'm dropping my 6 sleepers that could make the Steelers roster at 11 o'clock. So please go make sure that you check that out. We will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.